pulled it off.
Hey.
Seamlessly. Curmudgeon's Corner 58.
Check off 1. Intro.
Check off 1. Days without incident. 1. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Great to see you.
Yeah,
I feel like I've been so completely out of touch with everybody since I got back from South Carolina, from the Rise and Restore.
You just forgot about all the little people.
Not really. Not really. A lot of the little people were there. So
well, like I told you before, you know, this little person over here you forgot about.
100% no. Matter of fact, I do believe there's a voicemail on your phone that clearly indicates that I didn't forget about you.
I still have yet to listen to it. I'm gonna save it for like a really bad day.
Yeah, it's gold. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Every bit of snarkiness that you've come to enjoy out of me. So June, post-traumatic stress disorder awareness month. We have an unbelievable guest waiting for us backstage. I don't want to wait too long to bring him out because he's got so much going on. He's got a book that he just launched. I believe it just got released in May. So we probably should speed this along because I think it's going to be a pretty action-packed, a lot of information in tonight's episode. Obviously, something that is very dear to me and very dear to you.
Yes, sir.
So, and from what I've been able to gather from our people, very dear to them. So let's get started with the mental floss, and then I have to take care of some ambassador stuff, and then we'll get the program really underway. So let's get this fired up. This one might make you cry. I'm trying to break you.
Is one of the ones that I've sent you, or the reels that you ignore? Because I send you like 10 of them a day, and you just send back to me and express nothing of the ones that I sent to you.
It's not true. I mean, if you want to go back to the court reporter, I'll be happy to prove it to you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Share screen.
The people know.
How do I get rid of the anger that I have towards the parent that I didn't feel safe with?
So anger is there, is it not?
Yes.
And you're trying to get rid of anger.
Yeah.
So what does that make you feel?
Frustrated.
Yeah, which is akin to anger.
Right, yeah.
So how's that working out?
Not so good.
So you look at the parent with whom you have this anger towards, which really is on the continuum of a form of real judgment. And yet, because you're smart, you're intellectual, you've done work, you've listened to podcasts, mine or others, you're like, okay, maybe I should have forgiveness. That's the answer. But really what you're creating is more judgment now of you having anger.
Right.
Which is creating anger.
Right.
Which is like
the parent.
Ooh. And it doesn't condone whatever happened. What I hear under anger is a lot of hurt.
Yes.
But underneath the hurt, there's somebody who's asking to be held, to be seen. The protection mechanism for hurt is anger. You beat a dog one too many times, it's going to start and growl and bark and even bite. It's not a bad dog. It's just going on the evidence that you can't trust the hand that comes near you. So your anger is a survival mechanism for deep hurt. But you're also on top of that, it's compounded because now you're actually trying to not allow yourself to feel the hurt. So really underneath it, there's somebody who's hurt, who's desperately trying to put it on somebody else and yet make themselves wrong for putting it on somebody else. And you're in this vicious cycle of a lot of pain.
Yes.
So whatever your care provider couldn't provide for you, I'm going to assert you can. And this group certainly is here for it. I'm here for it. Because whilst you have this intellectual coping mechanism, which is superimposing judgment on somebody else, what's actually really at play is you're just wanting a safe enough space to feel everything that we feel comes down to two primordial emotions. We're either hurt or we're scared, usually both. And if we can make safe space for ourselves to realize there's a part of us that's hurt and scared because we're human and shit happens. And rather than try and get away from it, get rid of it, kick it, overcome it, blame a parent, just go, can I be a big enough human being to just feel hurt right now? And I don't know how many years that's been there, but this is how people get sick. Dis-ease is the precursor to, there you go. Someone just put our arm around that, thank you, Ken. Folks, this is everyday life. We don't know what she went through. We've all got our own version. This is so beautiful. she gets to step in a new world where she's just not walking around in pain. This is why people are on all sorts of medication. Street, prescribed food, TV, sex, weed, cigarettes. It's a real privilege to sit with somebody who has the courage to do this. I had no idea this was going to happen. I'm so grateful, though, that you as a collective are sufficiently kind and loving to hold space for someone to actually process something that's been there probably for decades. We love you.
How do I get rid of the anger that I have?
Boom. All right. I chose this particular clip because I think it symbolizes what we've been trying to do here in the corner, and that is make a safe space for each other. We promoting the the eight minutes, just reaching out to each other if you haven't heard from somebody in a while, that kind of stuff. And it resonated with me because I think that that's what we've been able to accomplish here in Curmudgeons, is create a safe space where we can, like, again, it doesn't matter what walk of life you're from. You come here, you can hang out, you're with friends. We can joke with each other, laugh with each other, cry with each other. And I also played that one because of who our guest is tonight. So, Arlene, love you.
Love you. But you're always the one crying, so
I know.
we make space for you.
Yeah,
because we love you even
this
when you're
this
crying.
is more for me than it is for anybody else in this room. That's for sure. All right. So the last piece of business that I have to attend to before I bring out Adam is apparently there was a whole lot of people that entered to win Fenrir, and Fenrir was supposed to come nearly a month ago. And we've had one continuous supply chain issue after another. It's finally the final leg of the journey is coming. It should be here next week, and it might be a little late for the 4th of July sale that Thor's going to be putting on, but I believe that we've worked it out that they're going to do pre-sales or back orders or whatever. So you'll still get it. You'll still be a part of the sale. Absolutely, Kimberly MC. Group hug for sure. So for everybody that entered the Wheel of Death, I'm going to spin the wheel, and then you guys will, hopefully somebody will win it, and I didn't screw it up like I did with the polisher. Bop, bop, bop. Let's see here, share screen. Wheel name, share.
Hey,
All right.
Hey Conway, hey Paul, Eric, Rick
Smith. Rick Smith. All right, here we go. I'm spinning the wheel. Maddie and I hadn't had a whole lot of conversation, so basically I just entered anybody that entered stuff. You know, I think you had a Nacho Man.
Too late, Chris. Sorry.
I'm gonna all right, I'm gonna I'll send him one, but then I want to send somebody else because he already got him. He got the beta version of it. Nacho Man. Then rear. I'm gonna spin it again. All right, one more time. Remove.
Mr. Ruiz, what's going on?
All right, one more time, and then we're done. We're moving on. Spend way too much time on this already. Voodoo.
Nice. Congrats, Eric.
All right. There we go. And bloop. Okay. All right. So notice the title is this an intervention for Aaron? Probably not. It's going to take a lot of intervention to save this chap. Anyway, without further ado, I want to welcome Adam to our show. Absolutely fireball of an individual. I can't say enough about him. The very short time that I've gotten to know him, just what an awesome human being. He is a former state trooper. I think I wrote something for it. Yeah. So Adam Blevins, MA, CCISM, a former state trooper who now serves as the operations director for Virginia Law Enforcement Assistance Program, the LEAP. In his role, he leads statewide initiatives focused on peer support, trauma intervention, and promoting wellness amongst first responders. Adam continues to serve his community as an auxiliary police officer with the Saltville Police Department and as a licensed resident counselor at Rivers of Hope Counseling, LLC, where he specializes in therapy for trauma, grief, and emotional resilience. Resilience. I wish I knew how to read. All right, without
That's
further
all right.
ado, let's bring Adam up. I'm so excited for this. Hey,
Hey.
How y'all doing?
fantastic.
Good,
How are you,
yeah.
sir?
Hanging in there, man. We've had ourselves a week in the Blevins, but we're pressing on. We're pressing on.
Excellent. Welcome to the Shift Show. There it is.
I appreciate you having the shift show on.
Absolutely. I have not gone as deep as I wanted to so far, but I have started
Pretty
it.
good.
And I'll be honest, there's been a lot of people that have already echoed the exact same thing that I have echoed to you, which is, when is it going to be on audio? Because we do so much driving, got to get it on audio.
Working on it. I'm hoping within the next, if we're being realistic, just because of all the stuff going on, and we have a 1-year-old, I hope to get it out sometime within the next 2 months, hopefully.
Oh,
But
wow.
That's awesome.
maybe quicker.
That's-
We'll see.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. So, Eileen, you want to introduce him to the corner?
Sure. You want me to do the quick fire?
Yeah, why not?
Cool. All right, Adam, I'm gonna ask you a few questions, basically kind of a this or that situation.
Oh, okay.
We'll kind of get to know you a little better. So, what is your favorite scent?
My favorite scent?
Yes. or smell.
Mountains with a stream.
Oh.
That's a good one. What's your least favorite?
Most of the things that come out of my 1-year-old.
Got it. What's the most used app on your phone?
Most used app on my phone? Notes. I have the worst case of ADHD on earth, so that app saves my life on an
helps.
hourly basis. Yeah.
I know the answer to this already, but Samsung or iPhone?
iPhone.
Whatever. Cats or dogs?
Dogs. Come on.
Dogs. Good. If you could only listen to one song, let's say in a full day, what would that song be?
Oh, how dare you? One song the whole day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Why did you do this to me? Why did you do this to me? There are so many good ones. And of course, hold on. Let me just go to my recently played on my playlist. I can answer that. Because that's too hard.
I know it's tough.
That is too hard. Let's see. Fleabag by Youngblood.
Okay.
If you've never heard of it.
All right. What is your favorite sandwich?
Oh, it would have to be Snoop Dogg's bologna sandwich recipe. It is with bologna. Is with American cheese, some barbecue Lay's potato chips, and mustard, and Wonder Bread. Nothing else.
Oh,
Wonder Bread.
boy.
I will see that sandwich and I will raise you a sandwich. I recently stumbled upon Utz's. They're called Red Hot. They're chips.
sir.
They're just
Mhm.
red hot. So substitute out that barbecue for the red hots. Holy majoli. That thing is absolute fire.
That or that's got to be a tie. Peanut butter and apple butter sandwich.
Really?
Yeah, you heard me. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Adam, because I like to instigate a little bit when it comes to Aaron.
Don't
do you
don't do it. I know where you're going with this. Don't do it.
I'm asking a question.
Uh-huh.
Do you consider a hot dog a sandwich?
It's from Good Mythical Kitchen, ain't it, or whatever it is? I guess it has to be, right? You've got meat between two pieces of bread. You put condiments on it. A hot dog's a sandwich.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a comeback from the.
How about this? What would you call that item that you just described from Snoop Dogg? What did you call it?
A sandwich? I'm
A
not sure.
bologna sandwich,
Yes,
right?
bologna
That's
sandwich.
a bologna sandwich.
Okay, this is a
Or
wiener
a
sandwich, whatever
peanut
you want to call
butter
it.
and apple butter sandwich.
It's a hot
Right.
dog
When was
sandwich.
the last time you ever called a hot dog a sandwich? Hey, can I get a hot dog sandwich, please?
A
Said
hot
no
dog
one ever.
sandwich, wiener
So-
sandwich, something. I don't know.
A wiener sandwich? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm
All
not gonna
right.
touch that one. I'm
All
not
right.
touching it.
Moving on. Next question.
Y'all are asking the questions.
Question.
What is one thing you own that you should throw out?
One thing I own that I should throw out.
Yeah, something
On
maybe you've
some
been
on
keeping,
some days
holding
my
on to.
phone, just to get a little
Yeah,
just to get a little break, get a
a
little
little
rest.
break.
Yeah. But that would be about it. Yeah. Everything else I'm proud of everything in here.
Okay, good. What do you consider the scariest animal?
The scariest animal? A sea snake.
Okay.
Sneak up on you, no idea it's there. One bite, you're gone.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. What was your first concert?
First concert, my dad took me to see Aaron Tippin. And whenever he was singing Working Man's Ph.D., I remember he put a bicycle together on stage while he was singing it.
Really?
That's pretty wild.
Core memory.
All right. Describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
Rest of my life in 5 words. I lived my way, period. Is that 5 words?
Yep.
There you go.
Sure.
There you go.
Okay. What's your favorite action movie?
Favorite action movie. I don't know if I could necessarily call it an action movie, but Law Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler. I'll call it action, but
Okay. Apples or oranges?
apples.
And last but not least, what would you want your legacy to be when you're gone?
That I loved for absolutely no reason.
Wow.
That's a good one. I like it.
All right. Adam,
Sir,
thanks for being on the show.
appreciate you having me.
So let's talk about our first question right out of the gate was, what is the S.H.I.F.T show?
So the S.H.I.F.T show is basically my love letter to mankind, really. It's just a lot of the stuff that I've went through and a lot of the stuff that I've learned over the years and learned from other people led me to wanting to put it on paper and led me to wanting to give something to someone that brings a unique experience to them that they may not have, right? As a former law enforcement officer, well, still in law enforcement, but former trooper and now in mental health, I've seen behind the curtain for a lot of life, right? A lot of things people don't see, a lot of things that people will never experience. And I wanted to bring something to folks that just kind of help them see that we're all products of so many different things, right? Our culture, our religion, our family, our friends, our education, everything, right? And I wanted to put something together that helped folks see that a lot of that stuff doesn't necessarily serve us, right? Some of it does. Some of it lifts us up. Some of it, gives us purpose. Some of it breaks us down, right? Some of it puts us in less desirable places. So I wanted to put something together that helps people recognize those things, recognize what it has done in their lives and some of the challenges that have come from it, and then put together something very simple, a really simple framework to help people see that I don't have to be whatever that is, right? I can shift my life. I can turn that corner. I can be who I want to be despite everything else.
Right. So I guess we should probably back up just a second. And that is, I guess the question that I know, but obviously the audience doesn't. You were a state trooper, and certain things have happened to you along the way as a state trooper, that impacted you to get to where you're at? Do you want to give a little bit of background about being a state trooper and you know, the wins and the wheres and the whys?
I would say that being a state trooper was beautifully terrible, or terribly beautiful, however you want to call it. Right? It's one of the greatest jobs on earth. Most of it, I loved every single second of it. Right? It's something that there's something new every day. There's a new challenge every day. There's an opportunity to be a positive force in somebody's life every day. Right? But on the other side of that, there's a whole other side of that, right? With a lot of pain and a lot of, you know, questions and a lot of things that drives the soul to want to understand things a little bit better, right? And so, yeah, a lot of the stuff I went through, man, it led me to places I didn't think I was capable of getting to, both good and bad, right? Um, but yeah, some of it was bad. And some of the things I experienced as a trooper is what led me into mental health, especially after, which I know we'll talk about this later, but uh, the things I went to as a trooper landed me in what's called a post-critical incident seminar. And that was really my first introduction to mental health, right? There was a lot of peer support. There were some therapists around and some things going on. But when I was introduced to mental health and I learned that the things that were killing me were overcomable, that there were things out there that could help me with what I was doing or what I was dealing with, it shifted my whole purpose. It shifted what I wanted to do. It shifted everything. And so, you know, being a trooper was awesome. And I enjoyed every second of it, but I also enjoyed the shift that it gave me to be able to take those things and give them to other people.
That's awesome. I'm probably jumping ahead a lot, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to because it just kind of segues into this. When you said, all right, so I got a lot of your story from watching the Suffering podcast that you did a couple of weeks ago when you were up here in New Jersey.
Mhm.
And basically, one of the things, like when Kevin was asking you those questions, you know, he had said, how did you make that transition where and you had said that your boss, I normally I would call him the CO because that's where you know, military background, it's a commanding officer, but when you were talking to Kevin, COs means corrections officers, it's a whole different thing. But yeah, your commanding officer basically said, hey, you need to take this class, and you were like, I'm good, thanks, no problem, I'm not doing it. And then he basically, well, that's an order, you don't really have a choice, you know, you're taking the class.
Yeah, voluntold.
Voluntold, exactly. My question that I've been buzzing in my head for the last week or so is, if somebody doesn't, like, you don't have any authority over anybody and they don't want to receive that kind of help, how do you get them to get that kind of help that clearly is effective and needed?
That is one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn, both as a cop and in mental health, is you can't save every puppy in the pound. You know, you can have filled the trough with water yourself, and you can walk the horse to the water. You can educate the horse on what the water is and what the water will do for the horse, right? The horse has to drink the water,
Right.
right? I was voluntold to go to this thing. If I would have walked in and kept the same attitude that I had, probably nothing would have happened. You know, I would likely still be in that little pit of despair, or I may not even be here anymore, right? But that's a reason why I do the things that I do and put all this stuff out there to try to educate people on, you know, as bad as you think you have it, that as deep as that pit is that you're in right now, there is a way out of it. I promise you there is. For you, it may be a little unique compared to other people, but there is a way out for everybody. It's just finding that intervention that works for you. But I can sell you that all day, right? I can put together all the marketing tools and I can tell you this is going to change your life in 3 days. You got to go, and you've got to be engaged, and you've got to want it, and you've got to be able to look in the mirror and say, what I'm doing is not working. So let's try something else. And again, if they don't take it, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. That's it's
I think that's the hard part, though.
yeah.
Is like when you have someone in your life that's in that at that point, it's like when do you know you have to step back and let them take the route that they're supposed to take? Because obviously it's someone in your life that you love. For me, I know this on a personal level, but like the outcome wasn't good. They ended up, you know, doing something different. But like when it's someone so close to your heart like that, it's like when do you say I love you enough to step back and let you make that decision on your own? And I
Man,
think that that's like the toughest part.
it is, and I don't think that I can answer that question because
Yeah,
it's unique to everybody, right? And it
right,
depends on a lot of things. It depends on what's your relationship with that person. What's the boundaries like? You know,
right,
how do they typically respond to it? It just depends, you know. But at the end of the day, it comes down to them. It comes down to
right.
them saying, perfect example, you know, we have, I don't know what you have in New Jersey that's equivalent to this, but we have what's called ECOs, emergency custody orders, where if somebody is either suicidal or, you know, they're in such a deep state of psychosis or something they can't take care of themselves, right? And they're taken into emergency custody. They're screened by a clinical professional to determine if they need to be hospitalized or if they can go home with a safety plan. Excuse me. Just started choking on absolutely nothing. Maybe it's the air down here in the basement. I don't know. But you know, even for folks who sometimes are forced into things, right? There still has to be a follow-up plan. You know, or you're going to
Right,
get medication here, you're going to get support here, you're going to get all the things that you were drug into, right? But what happens next is on you. Are you going to take those resources or are you not?
right,
So, and I agree with you. That's the hardest part, and I know exactly how you feel. You know, there are people in my life who, you know, there are times I've approached them and just said, "Hey, this is what it is," and you have support to help you deal with this. This is not something that, you know, I'm just throwing at you. There's no judgment here. You know, y'all said it at the top of the show. This is a safe space. But that
right.
person has to be willing to share that safe space.
Um, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Something that I kind of came to the realization. Did a lot of driving this past week, and when I'm by myself, the echo chamber it's very loud.
Hmm.
Um, the safe space is one thing, and having people available to you to talk to. I know that there's a handful of people even in this chat that I know that I can pick up the phone. You know, Papa Smurf, your friend Rick Smith. You know, if I'm going through something, I know I could pick up that phone at any time. Like you said in the Suffering podcast, anytime, day or night, you pick up the phone, you call me, I'm there to talk to you. My question to you is, especially for me personally, even though I know I have those people in my corner, you know, Eileen's another one. I find that my illness is a silent illness. And I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to reach out to people. I know I'm hurting and I know that I need to do something, um, talk to somebody, and I don't do it. And there's nothing logical about it. It's just it's just, you know, I'm in this, and it's only when, like, Eric will call me every morning at 10:30. He calls me every morning. We call it the drive-in. We talk about whatever. We bitch, we moan, we cry, whatever, laugh, make fun of each other's moms. But it's at that moment that he calls me that I find that I'll break,
Hmm.
you know, because he's like, "Hey man, what's going on this morning?" And it's just like, and he's like, "I hear something in your voice. What's going on?" And then I'll tell him. And then that's when that whole, I don't know if you know the 8 minutes story, but basically there's a psychological path of, if you just talk it for 8 minutes, it helps reset your brain pattern to not be so destructive.
Hmm.
So, you know, that's when we'll talk for, lucky for me, it's a half-hour drive for him. So, I mean, I get more than 8 minutes on the drive in. Like, what are the signs, or how do you know if somebody's hurting because they're not reaching out? Like, I just say, hey, if you have somebody close to you and you haven't heard from them in a hot minute, just reach out to them. Hey, haven't heard from you in about a week or so. What's going on? Are you okay? What's going on?
Hmm.
Thoughts?
Well, it's about routine, right? You know, some people, like you said, some people are just introverts. Some people don't like talking to people, you know, but if you notice that this person who's usually the social butterfly, who's always, you know, conversational and wants that engagement, and then all of a sudden they're just turned off and they start isolating and you don't see them at lunch anymore, that's when the signs start to come out. You start to notice, oh, well, this is not normal for this person, right? This is completely out of routine type thing. And then at that point, absolutely, I'm picking up the phone. Hey, man, I can't help but notice you didn't show up for poker tonight. That's 3 weeks in a row. Are you okay? Right. But
Yeah.
you said something earlier I want to circle back to real quick about the whole, I don't want to talk about it. There's no real logic to it. There's more logic to it than you think. And what I mean by that is we'll just use trauma as an example, right? When we experience a trauma, something that changes us, right? Something that sticks around for a little while, we develop something, can develop something that's called a trauma membrane. Okay. And what that basically means is that trauma membrane is your brain's way of protecting you from whatever it is that hurt you. For example, as first responders, it might be something bad happened in that house on Elm Street, right? You get a call one day that you have to get on Elm Street and you have to drive by this place in order to get to that call. Your brain goes, nope, not going that way. We're going to go this way. Even if it adds 5 minutes onto my trip, I'm not driving by that house. And in the moment, you're not really thinking about it, right? You're not paying attention as to why, but your brain is actively telling you, I don't want to see that. I don't want to smell that. I don't want to even pass. I don't want to know that I'm in the same vicinity as that, right? That's a trauma membrane. What people don't realize is while that trauma membrane is trying to block out all the things that hurt us, it also blocks out some of the things that can help us. Here's what I mean by that. A trauma membrane, if you're sitting there and you're saying, man, I don't want to talk about this, right? This thing that's just eating me alive. I don't want to talk about it. Why do you think you don't want to talk about it? It's because your brain is saying, if we talk about it, we're reliving it. We're diving right back into that. I don't want any part of that. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't end up going to therapy. A lot of people don't end up engaging in peer support or any other external resource, because deep down, and they may not even be conscious that they're doing it. Most of the time they're not. But I don't want to go to that. I don't want to talk about it. And we'll mask it, right? We'll say, well, I got to be tough, right? Or, I just don't believe in therapy, or whatever the case may be, however it is that you feel. But the point of it is there's more logic to it than you think, because it's your brain trying to protect you. It's doing its job. But sometimes the brain does its job a little too good and prevents us from being able to face something that would suck for a little while, but could potentially make this thing all kinds better, if that makes sense.
No, that's it. Very, very well put. Eileen, anything?
No, I wanted to mention, or maybe just acknowledge, I also watched that podcast, the Suffering Podcast, and one thing that kind of resonated was you had mentioned showing the picture of the woman who wrote "One More Day" on the beach in the sand, and I just wanted to mention it to you and just say, like, that was awesome. One, that you share that in your speeches or whatever, but also that that meant something to me, that you share that. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, she taught me a lot, and I don't know that she'll ever be aware as to how much she taught me in the conversations that we had
Yeah.
and the stuff that she was going through. But the biggest lesson that I learned from that whole situation and watching her grow from that is that we are so much more powerful than we think we are. So much more powerful. And the fact that, I have put this picture up in a presentation after just teaching a class on mental health or CISM or emotional survival or whatever the case may be, there's always, every single class, I've never taught a class where somebody's not hanging back wanting to have a conversation about it. And when people just look at this screen and they say, I needed to see that, I needed to hear those words. Those are her words, not mine.
Right.
I encouraged her to tell herself one more day and all that kind of stuff, but she put it into action. And just by taking her little fingers and writing a message in sand, I know at least one person, it saved their life, because when they saw it, they said, I'm not okay. And for the first time in my life, I recognize that. And I'm okay with not being okay. When I say okay with not being okay, I mean that in the sense of I'm finally ready to give myself permission to be okay again. And the fact that we are capable of dragging somebody out of that mud and maybe even potentially saving their life without even saying a word. I mean, you think about this. You think about, you're walking through Walmart and you look up and just see this person walking, their heads down, their body posture is just telling you that they are having the worst experience. They're just having the worst day ever, right?
Yeah.
That person looks up at you, and every one of us experience this almost on a daily basis. We got two choices, right? We can just go about our day and blah, 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 blah. Or you could look up, smile, hey, how you doing? Anything. That person might be on the brink of suicide.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you look at them, acknowledge their existence for 3 seconds and say, how you doing?
That could
Might change
mean,
everything.
yeah.
Could
This is
mean
my-
the rest of their life.
This is my favorite shirt. Right?
Yep.
The front of it says "Be kind," and on the back of it says, "Every person you encounter is battling a fight you know nothing about."
That's exactly right.
So,
But we all think we do, right? We all think we've got it figured out, and we just move through this world. But a lot of us forget that we're moving through this world as only we know how, and only looking through the lens that we are looking through. And until we all kind of take the time to look through other lenses, or to just appreciate the fact that there are other lenses, we're going to be stuck in the same situation.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can change that just by starting the conversation.
Adam, what first inspired you to step into this line of work after pivoting from on the streets law enforcement?
The post-critical incident seminar, specifically day 2, where I was introduced to a little something called EMDR therapy, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. When that happened, my brain was in a tailspin. I was introduced to something I didn't think was possible, right? And that just, I had to know what it was. I had to know how I felt better so quickly. And I had to know how all these other people that were here at the same time as I was, how they're feeling better, because I'd heard all their stories. They had heard my story. We all knew that we were screwed up in some way, shape, or form, right? But then we all come back later on that day, and people who just the day before couldn't even pick their head up, now they're having a hard time putting a frown on their face. And
Explain
it's
a little bit more
incredible.
about that EM.
I've heard some crazy
EMDR.
things about that.
EMDR?
Good
Was that
things. Yeah.
EMDR is, I've heard it called witchcraft. I think Kevin Donaldson, what was it he called it?
Chicken voodoo. Chicken
Yeah.
voodoo.
Chicken voodoo. I've heard it called a Jedi mind trick. I mean, I've heard it called all kinds of stuff, because I'm a provider in it now as well. It's insane. There's nothing else I can say about it. It's just insane. It's, how do I want to phrase this? EMDR basically forces us to sit with what is hurting us just long enough to help our brain process it and put it somewhere that it belongs, rather than it constantly just sneaking up behind our eyes and just beating the crap out of us, right? So how I like to explain EMDR to folks, well, I'll back up a little bit. EMDR is basically the only thing that we're doing in EMDR is we're inducing what's called bilateral stimulation. And what that means is we're going to get your eyes moving rapidly back and forth, right? And it mimics what you do when you're asleep, specifically when you're in your rapid eye movement, deep state of dream sleep, right? And the way that we induce this is, for some, we'll take our fingers like a field sobriety test, wave it in front of your face. Some have these little buzzies that go in your hand that vibrate right, left, right, left. Telehealth will put headphones on you. A tone will go right, left, right, left. And what that's doing is it's activating both parts of your brain. It's activating the emotional part. It's activating the logical part, right? Because the thing that happens when we experience a trauma is we have this fun little component in our brain that's called the amygdala. The amygdala is operated by anger, fear, vengeance, stuff like that, right? The amygdala is what goes nuts when there's a gun pointed at your face, right? Or when whatever it is, saber-toothed tiger standing in the corner. Brain goes nuts, right? The amygdala goes nuts.
Fight or flight?
Fight or flight. That's exactly what it is. Yep. The fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's when all these chemicals and hormones are released into your body to elevate everything you need to stay alive, and it gets rid of everything that you don't need, right? Problem with that is when you're in that deep emotional state, right? If you are unable to get out of that state, or if you're exposed to the stressor for a prolonged period of time, things can get stuck, or what we call things will maladaptively encode on your brain. Okay, that's typically where the pictures, the images that won't leave you, the smells that all of a sudden you smell this thing and boom, it takes you right back to something you experienced 10 years ago, right? That's what I mean by stuck. The bad memories, the avoidance behaviors, the dissociative stuff, that's where it comes from, right? So whenever we're doing EMDR and we're inducing that bilateral stimulation, it is allowing that logical brain to re-enter the conversation, okay? Because whenever we're experiencing that trauma, the emotional brain will envelop the logical brain. So the logical brain's trying to process it. It's trying to make sense of it, but it can't, right? So whenever we're doing EMDR and we start that bilateral stimulation, something crazy happens. The brain starts to process what the problem is, right? It starts to see it differently. And a lot of people have a lot of different experiences. Some people explain it like they're standing right in front of the bad thing, and now they're a mile away from it, looking through binoculars at it. For some, I've heard them say, and for me, it was like I was standing in front of a movie theater screen right here. That was my trauma. Only thing I could see, only thing I could hear. It just altered my life, right? After EMDR, it was on, that trauma was in the size of a cell phone screen. It was 20 feet away from me and I couldn't hear it anymore. That's basically what it does. EMDR helps to desensitize the harmful layers of those traumas, the harmful material, and it helps to reframe your perception of it. Okay. Let me give you just kind of a personal example for me. So if you watch the Suffering podcast, you heard the story about the 2-month-old.
Yeah.
When I went through EMDR with that situation, I was so angry and I felt so guilty. I felt guilty because I felt like I didn't get there quick enough, right? Even though I know for a fact I gave that little Ford Taurus all she had, right? And if y'all are familiar with Ford Tauruses, that ain't a lot, right? But I gave it everything I had to get to her. When I got there, worked on her. The people that showed up worked on her. There's nothing we could do, right? We could have had the best medical team on the earth right next to us. There's nothing anybody could have done. But in my mind, I started to develop these irrational thoughts. You didn't get there quick enough. You didn't work hard enough, right? Blah, 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 all these things.
That's survivor's guilt. Is that accurate?
That could be a potential component of it. Just depends. That wasn't really what I was going through. I didn't have any of the, why am I still here and she's not type of thing.
Oh yeah,
for me,
I got
it
that
was
completely wrong. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, no, you're fine. You're good. And that could be, for a lot of people, that is what they experience. But for me, it was just this blinding guilt and blinding anger. The anger was because it was her father that was responsible for what happened.
Right.
And man, the problem was, I'm so glad that you shared that video at the top of this episode, because I was walking around with that anger. It's a different anger, an anger that came from a different place in a different scenario. But that anger was controlling me, jawline just tight all day, white knuckling, chest tight, shoulders reaching up, touching my ears, just angry all the time, pissed off, because I didn't want to arrest this guy. I wanted to take him around the back of the building and beat him to death. It's not a healthy place for a cop to be. You don't want to have those thoughts in your mind whenever you got to go to work, you got to do business. People count on you to be mentally sharp all the time. And man, when I went through EMDR, this was the first time I was ever exposed to it. 30-minute session. I could no longer bring that anger up. And I tried. So we would go through all these different rounds. And then whenever we got to the end of it, this clinician who I just met, the day before, looks at you and says, tell your story again. And I'm like, lady, I just told you my story 30 minutes ago. What is wrong with you? I don't like this story. The story was easier to tell the second time. And it was weird because of how quick it was. Before, I didn't want to even acknowledge that it happened, much less talk about it. But now I'm starting to talk about it, and those same emotions that I was so used to living in, they weren't coming up anymore. And still to this day, I got EMDR for that, 7 years ago now. Yeah, 7 years ago now. Still to this day, if I try to go to that memory, it's still there. It never completely goes away, right? We don't erase memories in EMDR. We give them a chance to tell the truth, right? And so when I went through EMDR, I started to realize that the guilt was so irrational because I did everything that I knew to do. I did everything my training told me to do, right? But when it came to the anger, I realized I was holding on to something that didn't belong to me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And that anger, that person didn't deserve me walking around ruining my life because of all the anger that I had for them, And when I went through EMDR, now when I go back to that and I think about that whole scenario, I don't see it as the bad call that resulted in a homicide case in which I had to watch a child die. I don't see it that way anymore. I know that happened, and I know that sucks. But now when I go back to that memory, she took her last breath right here. They were able to bring her back, and she ended up passing away a couple hours later. But as she was taking her last breaths in my hands, now as I go back to that, what I feel, what I experience is she died in the hands of somebody that loved her.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
somebody that actually gave a shit about her existence was right there with her. And I would have never got there on my own had it not been for EMDR.
so, my story is a little bit different. We talked about it a little bit. We respond first and foremost. Thank you for your service. And I've always, I've been in EMS for close to 20 years. And, I've always had a much different respect for law enforcement than I think a lot of people that are outside of the first responder bubble. And that's because, like, we've seen firsthand how, like, the difference between a first responder, fire EMS, and first responder police, you guys see so much more uncertainty than we do. Often, very often, but when we show up on an ambulance or on a fire truck, we have a pretty good idea of what we're walking into. Even in, like, even in some of the disaster cities that I've worked in, no one's taking a shot at the guy that's there to patch him up, right? So there's that difference where every single encounter that police encounter, it could be your last. Even a everyday random traffic stop. You have no idea what's in that car until So I think that there's a level of heightened intensity that comes with your job versus what came with our job. For me, my turning point as far as questioning my faith and basically becoming almost dead inside was when we were called in on a mutual aid for that unconscious, unresponsive baby. And those parents had left that baby in the car to bake to death. And Jacob was fresh. I think he was less than 2 years old. And I just remember all I wanted to do was I needed to see Jacob. I mean, I hated those parents. And there was an anger, like you described, that anger towards them. Like, I wanted to just, like, how could you possibly forget about your baby to leave it in the car to bake to death? But again, that's where my mission ended and yours begins, where you have to arrest them and all the process and all that stuff. Where for me, it's like one and done and I'm moving on. And I think that's ultimately, that's the beginning of the end for me, where I just became dead inside. We're able to compartmentalize. And I mean, there's probably 40,000 images that I carry around in my brain that a normal human being shouldn't be exposed to. Ground faces, a shotgun blast to the face, and it covers the back of the wall. All of those things. Scooping gray matter off of a dashboard. Like, I never realized, it's a deadening process. Like, you start to slowly remove yourself from empathy and humanity. And then when you and I were talking on the phone, like, I started to come apart because I didn't realize it's all down in there. So, I mean, basically my question to you is, how do you define trauma for someone who doesn't realize they might be carrying it?
If something changed you, it's trauma. If you, excuse me, if you move through the world differently now, after that thing happened to you, that's trauma. And a lot of times, people well, we're in these trauma contests, right? Well, I was overseas and did this. Well, my cat died. We got to get out of the competitive trauma nonsense. Trauma's trauma. And,
Right.
We talked about it again on the Suffering podcast, and Kevin put it perfectly. He said, it's the most unbiased teacher. And that's exactly right. It doesn't care who you are. Doesn't care where you come from. It's going to take you however it's going to take you. The point of it is how you respond to it, right? Now, you mentioned that we compartmentalize stuff, and that sounds great, right? When you say, oh, I compartmentalize that, it sounds like I put this somewhere, I've dealt with it, we're here now, right? We're fine. We're going to move through our life. And that's not the case. That's not true. Jeffrey Mitchell famously said that a trauma will remain a trauma until an intervention is found. Doesn't go away. It's going to be there. Now, the whole compartmentalizing thing, the more we continue to stack these things on top of each other, some people call it a backpack, some people call it the bucket of water that you're carrying around, whatever metaphor that you want to use for it. The more things we push down, the more things that we pack down, eventually it's going to bust, right? It's like if I were to ask you to take a beach ball and hold it underneath the water at the ocean or at the beach. You look like you're a big guy. You can probably hold that beach ball under that water for a significant amount of time. But eventually, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's gonna
Eventually, you're human.
It's gonna
Those
find its way out.
Those shoulders are going to give out, man. Those forearms are going to give out. Those biceps. It doesn't matter how strong you think you are. Eventually, when that one thing happens and it just sets you off, it brings all that other stuff back. And that's the beautiful part about EMDR is we can go back and we can take it one at a time. We can take this event. We can take this event. We can take this event. Oftentimes, they're connected, right? Oftentimes, there is a neural pathway that is directly associated with whatever we're working on. And then when we open up that other trauma that you mentioned, 3 months ago, now all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, this used to really bother me, but now it's not bothering me the same anymore. And that could be because of that association to whatever else it was. So, and here's another thing about EMDR that I didn't share before. You can sit down in an EMDR session and think you know exactly why you're there. You may think, oh, this thing happened to me, this thing changed me, let's deal with it. And then when you sit down, that bilateral stimulation starts, all of a sudden the brain goes, yeah, that sucked. That bothered us. That's not the problem. The problem is what happened to us when we were 7. That thing that happened when we were 7 years old.
I don't want to
That's
go
why
that,
we're reacting.
I don't want to go that deep.
Well,
we
most
buried
people
that
don't.
down good. That's in another vault. It's all sealed away and it's nice and locked away. We don't need to talk about that. We don't need to talk about that. I forgave
let me ask you this. What happens if we can reach into that vault and we can take whatever it is that's inside that vault that we know is hurting us, but we feel safe because it's locked behind the vault, right? What happens if we take it out? We give it the attention that it needs in order to process it, for the brain to say, I'm not going to let this hurt me anymore. Process it, move on to the next. What happens when that vault gets emptied? I know it sounds like I'm selling you a dream.
No, it's not. It's just there's a real fear to it, Adam. There's
Absolutely.
a real fear to
Absolutely.
it. Like it's like, no, I feel safer with that locked away, that I don't need to address that, and I don't want to address it, because as long as I don't, it's like I guess the fear is, well, what happens if it doesn't work and now that demon is loose again?
So that's a very real fear. And that's something that if you have a good clinician, they're going to educate you on that. And we're going to have things in place to help when that demon comes out, right? To be able to regulate ourselves in such a way that it's not going to control our lives, right?
Yeah.
Until we can readdress it the next time we come in. And that's another thing that is very, very important that a lot of people don't know is all these mindfulness practices and breathing techniques and grounding techniques and coping things that most people laugh at. There's so much more going on in your body when you do those things than you realize. An example of that is, let's say right now we're sitting here having this conversation and we were to introduce, the box breathing, tactical breathing or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a reason that calms us down, because it changes our nervous system. It changes what part of our brain we're currently engaged with. It activates what's called a relaxation response, right? A lot of people don't really ever learn how to do those things, which makes the video you shared at the top of the episode all that more important, because as I'm watching that, I'm seeing somebody that something bad happened to her. She's still carrying whatever that is, and she hasn't learned the tools to help navigate and to help carry whatever that is in a way that better suits her, rather than now she's projecting this onto other people, and now she's carrying this anger that she can't get rid of, and now it's affecting other areas. So the point I'm trying to make is, man, it's when we face it, we give it a chance to heal. We give it permission to heal. The fear and the avoidance, again, that's all there for a reason. The brain is defending you. The brain says, I ain't going there. Not happening. But then on the other side of it, the brain goes, I'm glad we went there. And I'm being serious, man.
I know you are. I know
unreal.
you are.
It's unreal.
Adam, I'm a big fan of yours. I know you're 100%. Everything that's coming out of your mouth is coming from a beautiful place. So what signs or symptoms of unaddressed trauma do people often mistake for just stress, or this is just my lot in life?
Oh my gosh, all of them. It could be appetite, it could be libido, it could be changes in mood, it could be avoidance behaviors, it could be dissociative factors, which is, the 1,000-yard stare, the checking out and going, when you jump in your car and you drive somewhere, it's a 20-minute drive, you get to your destination and you have no idea how you got
That
there,
happens a lot.
That happens
right?
an awful lot.
Right? But sometimes
I
those
turn on in the
associations,
middle of the highway and I'm like, wait a minute,
yeah, how the hell did I get here? And what have I been thinking about for 20
did I miss
minutes?
my exit?
Yeah. So a lot of things, man. Isolation is a big one. That was a big one for me. As y'all can tell, I like to run my mouth. I'm a social butterfly, till I get home, I'm ready to shut it down. But that's the first person that noticed something was going on with me was somebody that I worked with, and I hadn't been eating lunch with them, because every day we'd go eat lunch at the same time. All the shift partners, local PDs, deputies, and stuff, we'd all get together and go out to eat. And but I was going home during lunch, and to me that was just I don't really want to. I don't feel like it. Right?
Yeah, I don't feel like it.
I didn't see it as oh my God, I'm crumbling inside. Right? It's just I don't feel like it. And that person noticed that, and then started to notice other things, and supervision started to notice other things. But that was the first person to say, I've noticed a change in your routine. I've noticed a change in who you are. Something's up. So it could be a number of different things, man. A lot of people are walking around carrying so many things that there are so many interventions that can help them. But not only do they not know about those interventions or where they can find them, they don't really even know what's going on with them. They don't know that it's just stress. It could be the fact that you never dealt with that thing that happened to you when you were 10 years old. Right? Here's another thing to give you a little idea of what I'm talking about. Let's say, have you ever been on a plane and you can't get your bag out of that overhead bin, and it's stressing you out because there's 30 people standing behind you pissed off because they're trying to get off the airplane, and your anxiety skyrockets, right? All of a sudden now you're just in this, I got to get it. And all of a sudden now things start changing. How many people question where that comes from? How many people stops and asks themselves, why do I worry so much about this crap that in 30 seconds is not going to matter? And I'm one of these people, right?
Yeah.
That anxiety comes from somewhere. You've experienced something. Your parents, this was the lifestyle that you were used to living. So it's go, produce. And now this heightened sense of anxiety, there's just so many people, man, that if they just take a minute to sit with whatever it is, they'll figure it out. Sit with a professional, have the conversations, find out what's eating you, and find out what you need to get rid of it. And one more thing before we get off EMDR that I forgot about, that kind of goes to your question. One of the best things about EMDR is you don't have to talk. You don't have to tell your story. You don't have to go into the gory details about stuff. If I'm your provider, the only thing that I need, it helps me to know, but the only thing I need to know is if you're experiencing something good, you're experiencing something bad, or it's neutral, vague, I can't really make any sense of it, right? That's all that we need to know. So for these folks who have that trauma that is so personal and so deeply gutting that just the sheer thought of saying a word out loud keeps them from going into therapy, understand this. If you've got an EMDR provider, you don't have to talk about it. And the brain will still do the same thing. The processing will still do the same thing. And here's another way to help explain it a little bit better, especially for the science nerds, if you have any that listen to the show.
We have several engineers in this group right now.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. So there's another part of your brain called the hippocampus, right? That's basically the filing cabinet of our brain. It's where all of our memories go, right? If you think about that as a filing cabinet, every memory that you have, all the birthdays, all the anniversaries, all those things, right? They're in that filing cabinet, and they're in manila folders. They're all labeled appropriately. They're in alphabetical order. They're in chronological order, what have you. But there's this big ass red folder. It's 3 times the size of all the other ones. The content's all disorganized. Doesn't make any sense. The label on it is, it's in a different language, right? You can't even shut the drawer of the filing cabinet because of that big red folder. And every time you try to go deal with it in ways that you used to, all of a sudden that folder spills out. And now everything's all over the floor. You're stepping in it. It's all over the walls, right? EMDR lets us take the red folder, open it up, remove the contents, throw away the red folder. We don't need that anymore. We're going to rearrange these contents until they make sense, until the brain can figure out this is what happened, this is what didn't, this is what I'm responsible for, this is what I'm not, this is what I can control, this is what I can't control. Then we take those contents, we put them in a manila folder, we label them the way they're supposed to be labeled, and we put it where it's supposed to go. That way, instead of that memory constantly going, instead now it's a, okay, I can learn this, I can learn that. Now let me put it back.
It's Adam. Wow.
I wish I would have done that like 15 years ago.
Oh, the good
Adam,
news
Because I
is you still got plenty of time.
Oh, well,
Because I
here
feel like there's so much that I got myself through and like worked through with like countless therapists and just like inner monologue that I feel like this could have definitely like kickstarted way, better than
Yeah.
what I was doing.
I call my trauma the wheel of woe. It's imagery from Conan the Barbarian. His mother and father are killed in the beginning of the movie. He's taken into slavery, and he goes up into the mountains to push on this ginormous wheel. And there's a whole bunch of little kids beside him that they're pushing the wheel around. They're making grain or whatever it is. And then it shows the progression of Conan. Fewer kids are on the wheel. He's getting bigger. He's getting taller. And then at the end, it's just him pushing the wheel, and he looks up and it's Conan the Barbarian, as you know him from Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's sold into the gladiator world. So I've always pictured like all of my trauma and all of my struggles and my stress and Phoenix, the struggles of being a small business owner, all of that stuff. I just call it the wheel of woe, and I'm just going to keep pushing on it. I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to continue to grind until I push myself to the other end. And one day I'm going to look up and I'm going to be Conan the Barbarian. And that's how I've dealt with like the last 10 years of my life. I'm just going to keep pushing until I can find my way to the other side. Clearly that is not healthy at all. So my question to you, Adam, is what is the first step someone should take if they think they are struggling with that unnamed stress or that unnamed trauma?
Give it a name. Step one is give it a name.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Step one is
failed step one.
I failed step one.
You have to acknowledge it, regardless as to whatever it is. If we don't acknowledge something, the brain says this is not worth my time, right? It's not worth any effort, stress, energy to put into this. But if you acknowledge it, right? Let's just say, perfect example. The other day had a really bad day. As you know, we've had some challenges here at the Blevins that we've been navigating, and had a real bad day, man. It was just down and out. And when the bad thing happened, I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm like, okay, I can let this ruin me, right? I can let it ruin my day, because most of the time it's exactly what I do, right? And then the next day I'm wondering, why am I so pissy? Why am I in such a bad mood, right? Well, it's because I let that stew and I just let that eat me alive all day the day before. But trying to change your mindset in that moment. For example, the bad thing happens and I'm like, this is bad. This sucks. This is inconvenient, right? Let me name it. What is stressing me out? What is giving me anxiety? What is pissing me off? What is the situation and how am I reacting to it? Let me acknowledge what it is, and then give myself permission to freaking do something about it. And here's how I tend to do that, right? Another example, I'm the world's worst when it comes to road rage. If you cut me off, I hate your family, I hate your God, I hate everything you stand for. It doesn't matter. This is only going to affect my life for the split second that it happened, right? But when I introduce this concept in my mind, if I say, if this is the worst thing that happens today, this is going to be a pretty good day, right? This is an inconvenience, right? This is going to bother me for a second, but it's either going to bother me all day or it's going to bother me for that second, because I've seen bad days and this ain't it.
Wow. Yeah. That your perspective is everything. All right. So then what's the difference between pushing it down and truly processing it? Because obviously that's my coping method, is to push everything down. Like, and like my friend Tracy just said, when you acknowledge it, and you give it when you give it a name, you acknowledge that it's real. And you know, is it real, or is it just perceived pain, or like yeah, I mean, man, this is a big onion to unpack in 2 hours. I'm
Of
sorry.
course it is. No, you're good. You're good. What was the exact question again?
The exact question is, what's the difference between pushing down the pain and truly processing it? And does everything truly need to go through that process, or is it something that, like, that, you know what, like you just said about perception, you know what, I've seen worse, this really isn't that bad, moving on.
Right. So imagine this, right? You go up to your sink and you open the cabinet beneath it, and you reach underneath it and you find bleach or whatever other poison is under your sink, and you just take a shot of it, right? And then the next day you take a shot of it. Next day you take a shot of it. You're just putting poison on top of poison on top of poison. That's what we're doing. The things that hurt us, the things that changed our life, and now we see things differently. The lens of our life is now either cracked or blurred or whatever it is. It comes back to giving it a name, man. That pushing it down stuff, it just doesn't work. And most of our cultures, especially especially being a man, right? What are we taught? What are we taught about being masculine, about being a man? Be tough, right?
Oh yeah,
You don't cry.
I told you about when I told my dad that I went to therapy. He had words for me about, like, why the F do you need to go to therapy?
Yeah,
Like, what is that shit all about?
We have demonized vulnerability, man. We have made being vulnerable seem like a weakness, and that takes our humanity away. We're not. That's just simply not how we're built, right? It is so. I would argue that it is so much braver, so much more courageous, so much more strength to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, "Let me deal with this. Let me process this. Let me handle it." Because future me deserves to not carry around this pain anymore. My kids deserve to not have the version of me I'm going to be if I'm still carrying this, right? My spouse, my other family, my job, anything, right?
Right.
It's really just giving yourself permission to take back control of whatever it is that you think is controlling you, is what it comes down to. But when you take those things that you think are controlling you and you just keep pushing them down on top of each other, well, man, you've just got 30 puppet masters above you, and you're just connected to 50,000 different strings. But if we reach up and we cut the strings, you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I know that sounds easy. It's not that easy. It's hard as hell, but it's possible.
Sure, but then so Franco just made a comment. I'm going to put it up on the screen in a second. But you being in law enforcement and me being in EMS, we have the dark humor. I mean, we can literally laugh at some of the worst things we've ever seen in our lives, and just say really ignorant things as a way of just, like you said, the mind, protecting itself, and you make a joke out of it, as opposed to really digesting what it is that is going on here. You know what I mean? Like, and I can think of a million different scenarios where we were laughing the entire time that really horrible shit was going down. So basically what Franco says is, humor has always been my coping mechanism, sometimes to a fault, but if I can't laugh my way out of my woes, what good am I? Like, and again, reflecting back on my years in EMS and seeing some of the absolute worst that humanity has to offer, and some of the worst trauma that other people have experienced, I processed it and I don't believe that I was weighed down by it. Obviously, it eroded my ability to create empathetic bonds with people and my empathy. But I from like a day-to-day business, day-to-day interactions and my job, it didn't impact my job. I was, like you said, your uniform gets disheveled, you stop going to lunch, you stop doing this, you stop doing that. I didn't do any of those things, but my ability to connect with another human being that was suffering, I was like, you're not my problem. Like, I think I told you the story about so we responded one morning to a unconscious, unresponsive It was before 7 a.m. So, immediately the jokes start, right? The first joke is, somebody forgot to wake up again. Son of a bitch, they're going to ruin breakfast. So now we go to the job. We show up and we get all over gear and we walk up to the front door, knock on the door, and there's a Down syndrome man. He's about 45 years old, but they have achieved arrested development, so he's still very adolescent in mind stature. Open the door, my dad won't wake up. Okay, so we go to the back room. All of the signs of death are there. Line of lividity, pupils fixed and dilated, no pulse. Every indicator that this guy is dead. And so it's kind of like, well, there's nothing to do here. Pack up all of our shit and go back out. And the kid is standing there, and he's like, "What's wrong with my dad?" And I just said, "Sorry, your father has passed. He's no longer with us." And he gives me this ginormous bear hug, and he's sobbing and he's crying, and he says, my dad and I are supposed to go to Atlantic City today, and we're going to go gambling, and it's my birthday, and all of these things that he's telling me as he's crying and sobbing and hugging me. And all I'm doing is looking at the state trooper behind me, and I'm mouthing him, "Get this fucking guy off of me. Like, get him off of me." And so the state trooper comes over, and he's, separates us, and we go out we're loading all the gear back out to the ambulance. This car comes screaming up to us, and a woman gets out, and she's like, "What's wrong with my dad?" And I'm like, "You're probably better off talking to the state trooper inside." And so she goes running up the driveway, and I'm watching her, and I'm waiting for the storm door to close. And the moment the storm door closes, I turn to Bobby, and I'm like, "Hey man, I'm hungry. You want to get some pancakes?" And Bob thought that was the funniest thing he had ever heard. And I was just like, what was so funny about that? He's like, "Dude, that is so fucking cold." You were like, "Wow, dude, that is cold." And I was like, what? Like what am I supposed to do? Let's get some pancakes. We're outside of the squad building. Let's not go back without eating something. And we go to breakfast, and that's when I realized every one of my actions outside of just being, responding to this unconscious, unresponsive, was so inhuman. And I had become a horrible person as an EMT. My personal life, but as an EMT, I had killed off every kind of empathetic connection that I ever wanted to have with victims and patients families. Like, you're just in my way at this point. I got to get to the end of my shift. I don't even know where I'm going with this, Adam, but it was one of those things.
I know where you're going with it.
I knew that I needed to get off the street. That's the end of the story. It was that moment after we're eating breakfast, and I'm reflecting on this, and I'm like, I put in for a supervisor's job because I needed to get off the street.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it was time, and I think we all have the time for whatever reason that may be, right? If you have reached a point to where you say, "That's it, this is my backpack, can't take no more. I don't want to fill it anymore with this stuff. It's time to go," right?
But I didn't even realize I was filling that backpack. I didn't realize it.
Well, and here's the thing, when you talk about, I'm a bad person and all this, you talked about how inhuman it is. I would argue the complete opposite. I would argue that is as human as we can possibly get. You responded to this thing that you've seen so many other terrible things in your life that won your career, right? And you start to use humor, and you start to use all these other things. When we're laughing, right, we're releasing a different hormone. When something makes us laugh and joyful and all that, we're getting that dopamine, right? We're getting that feel-good hormone. So why would the brain not want to seek a feel-good hormone when something that it knows can hurt it is right in front of it? That's human. That's the brain saying, "I've been hurt so many times," right? And then we talk about this disconnect, right? No empathy, no compassion. Well, the brain says, if I don't let this hurt me, it won't hurt me, right? If I flip that switch, these things can't hurt me anymore. But that's not entirely true, right? Because a lot of people think that they pushed all that away, and 10, 15 years later, now they're starting to have the real side effects of having never dealt with that stuff, right? So humor's great. Humor's awesome. Humor does beautiful things for our body. But what doesn't is start to beat yourself up over it, right? And start to have guilt. Perfect example, we were working a crash one day. It was a horrible fatality, very gory fatality. It was a motor vehicle crash. And similar situation. I'm standing there with a trooper who's been doing this for, at that point, at least 20 years, 15 to 20 years, something like that. And I was fresh. I was a year and a half, 2 years on the job, something like that. And we're standing here over this person that used to be a human being, just a few minutes ago. And he looks down and he sees the things that were in this human that are now out of this human. And he goes, "What are we doing for lunch?" "I'm feeling spaghetti."
Yeah.
And you say that to people that don't understand, that's never been in that situation. Well, when you've seen hundreds of dead people, your brain is going to figure out some way to defend itself from the challenges that come from that, whatever it may be. Whether it may start to run to alcohol, it may run to humor, it may run to therapy, it's going to run to something to help cope and help deal with this. But as we've been talking about this whole show so far, there are productive, healthy ways of dealing with those things, and there's very unproductive, unhealthy ways of dealing with those things. So I'm not going to say that having that gallows humor is a bad thing. It's not. It's a great thing. That means your brain's still doing what it's supposed to do. It's still trying to find something to make it feel better, which is another reason why a lot of us run to alcohol, right? Makes me feel good. It gives me that dopamine, right? It makes me feel good. It numbs it. It dulls it.
As I say, for me, it quiets the demons. Yes. It numbs, and it's just like, you know what? Like I always say, whiskey. The best part about whiskey is that it doesn't dull the pain. It just makes you not fucking care about it.
It's like, y'all asked me at the beginning of the show what I thought was the most dangerous animal, sea snake being one of them. You think about a room full of sea snakes, right? And you just fill it up with water or alcohol, if you will. You just fill that room. I'm going to drown these snakes. I'm going to get rid of them. There's 2,000 snakes in this room. So you fill it up with all that alcohol, gets up to the top. But then that alcohol starts to drain out.
Yeah.
Right? Well, when all that fluid is back out of that room, what's still there? The damn snakes. And they're still alive because they're sea snakes. They might be drunk as hell at this point, but there's still going to be a bunch of sea snakes in there. So the point of it is, man, is that alcohol, it does a lot of great things for us in the few hours that we're dealing with it.
Yeah.
But it's combating our rapid eye movement, deep state of dream sleep. So our brain's not healing the way it's supposed to when we're consuming copious amounts of alcohol. It's not helping us sleep the way that we think it is. And then when you wake up the next day, problems are still there. The trauma is still there. The things you're avoiding are still there. Right? There are ways, EMDR being one of them, there are ways for it to not be there, or at least be carrying it a little differently after that. Hello, Rick Smith.
Rick Smith. Eileen,
and Boss Lady. I know Boss Lady's there with you.
Anything before we move to the next one?
Not for me.
Okay. All right, so to kind of circle back around, we do have some new folk that just entered the chat since we started earlier. What does SHIFT stand for? Asking for a friend.
Very good. So the SHIFT is it's the SHIFT framework that comes from the book. Very simple. The S starts for stop, right? And that is stop giving power to the things that hold you back, that drag you down, all the stuff that you're running from, all the things that you're avoiding, all the things that people called you when you were a kid, and now you think it's who you are, this identity, whatever it is, your culture, your religion, your blah, 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 right? Whatever it is, stop giving it power over you. If you don't know how to stop, find an intervention, find something that's going to give you that empowerment, give you that encouragement to give yourself permission to take control of this thing again, right? The H stands for hype, right? We are all the main character of our own story. Most of the time we forget that, right? We start just moving through this world, just taking it as it comes to us. We sometimes develop, certain personality quirks that come from different people, and we think that we're not good enough. I can't do this. I can't achieve that. Why are we all not looking in the mirror every day, regardless as to what we look like, where we come from, and saying, I like that. I like that. Let's make it a little better today, right? I'm going to hype myself up. I'm going to do that thing I wanted to do. I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to stop, giving power to this thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to hype myself up because this is my damn story, not anybody else's. The I stands for be innovative, right? We've talked about figuring out when things aren't working, right? Let's use alcohol as another example. If I learn that my relationship with alcohol is not helping me, I have two choices. I continue doing what I know is not working, or I can change that. I can be innovative. I can look at different things, different resources, and be willing to open my mind up to different things in order to become who I want to become or deal with whatever it is that I need to deal with. The F stands for when you stop giving power to those things, you start hyping yourself up like you're the main character, you start being innovative with how you deal with stuff and how you approach life. The F stands for fight for that freaking person. Fight against all the things that used to drag you down that now you're taking control over, right? Fight for your right to be whoever the hell you want to be, regardless as to what anybody else has to say about it, right? We all have our opinions and we all think we're right. We're not, right? Some of us are right in some things, other of us are wrong in a lot more things, right? So fight for that person that you want to be. And the T stands for, once you've done all that, it's time to thrive. It's time to stop surviving and just moving through life how other people wanted you to, or how, you know, some of the other maladaptive things that you were doing. Now it's time to be who you are, unapologetically. Enjoy the rest of your life.
It's awesome. That's awesome. So then that dovetails into the next question. What part of your shift framework is most important for anyone trying to heal, and why?
I would say, that's hard.
I'm thinking you can't skip any of those steps. That's what I'm thinking. Like,
You can't, but I would say the most important would be the I, to be innovative, right? Because if you think that you figured out how to stop these things, if you think you figured out how to gain control of those things, but you're not, and you're starting to notice, no, I'm not, you have to be innovative. You have to figure out another way, right? Perfect example for me, I wasn't doing nothing. I was going home and I was drinking. I wasn't going to the gym. I was staying away from people. I was treating the people in my inner circle like absolute trash. Didn't really realize it at the time, right? But I had to be willing to be innovative. I had to be willing to look at my situation and say, this is not working. I still feel like crap. It's time to do something else. And I say that also to say a lot of people that are listening to this or who have had bad experiences with therapists, you know, a lot of folks that I get, they've had 3, 4, and 5 therapists and nothing has landed so far, right? If something hasn't worked for you, the first, second, third time you do it, don't give up on it, right? Don't give up on yourself. Be innovative. Be willing to say, well, let me find somebody else. Be willing to say, I'm going to seek the thing that I need to move forward from this. So I would say that.
oh, so then what part of the process do you find that people struggle the most with?
Stop. I would say they struggle the most with stop because a lot of people may not even know what they need to stop.
Yeah.
Right? Perfect example. Let's say somebody that has body image issues, right? They're 20 some, 30 some, 40 some years old and they hate the way they look. Why? Were you born with that hatred for yourself? Were you born with that ability to look at yourself and be absolutely disgusted by what it was? Or did that have to come from somewhere? Did that have to come from a family member at some point in time that called you fat? Or that high school kid that thought they were big and bad and bullied you into thinking that you were something that you're not? So now you're in your adult life and you've developed body image issues. Maybe you've developed eating disorders or something to cope with those things, right? Most people fail to even know where that comes from because a lot of them, they don't want to go back, right? They don't want to go back and have that conversation. They don't want to go back to the childhood and all that type of stuff. But most people struggle with the stop because they may not know what they need to stop.
Well,
Right.
there's an argument out there that says that depression is chemical. It's just it's a chemical imbalance in your brain. What do you say to that?
What I say to that is and you guys have known me for a very little amount of time, but I've always been this uppy, bubbly personality and want to tell jokes and want to be in the middle of a crowd and stuff like that. So let's say if that was me, right? I'm always the one telling jokes. I'm always the life of the party. Never struggled with depression before, and I didn't. I've never struggled with depression in my life until that thing happened. And then all of a sudden, now I have depression. Now I'm having a hard time getting out of bed. Now I'm having a hard time exercising the thing that I believed to be the reason why I'm on this planet. So do some people already have some inherent genetics and factors that could make them more prone to developing depression? Absolutely. That can be said for a lot of different things. That could be generational, right? It could be things that happened to somebody in your family 3 generations ago, and it's something that just has steadily throughout the generations. Now you're still dealing with some of those effects. But depression can be induced by other things, anxiety, PTSD, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So that,
Sure.
no, it's,
So I would say some of my earliest memories, I've been depressed since adolescence for sure, or at least struggled with it since adolescence. And clearly things have added to it along the way.
Sure.
You know, that have, you know, compounded it and piled on. So as I mean, like I'm truly enjoying this conversation and the things that you're mentioning and talking and unpacking, you know, all those vaults that I probably am not even aware of at this point. But at some point I also want to say, like, you know, is there a predisposition to it all?
in some situations there are. Yeah. Just like there are some people who will tell you, I've never experienced anything traumatic. I've had a pretty easy life now that I think about it, you know, but then you find out their mom had depression and their grandma had depression
Right.
and their great grandma had depression. So there are certain things that can be passed down generationally, but they can also be induced by some other factor of life, some other circumstance.
Okay, so I know that we're running up on the 1.5 hour mark, and I there are some really cool things I still want to talk to you about. The detailing world, Phoenix family, everybody that's in the chat rooms now, anybody that watches or listens to this on their podcast later. Again, it's uniquely different than you and I, you know, first responder. The detailing world and the Phoenix family is full of grinders, people who bury themselves in their work. What would you say to someone in our community that is quietly suffering, and they've already passed that Rubicon of spending time by themselves, and it's very, like, for me, it's very easy to blame it on work. Oh, I'm going to be at the warehouse. I'm doing 16-hour days at the warehouse. I'm doing, you know, whatever. This work has to get done. And for me, I'm addressing my demons of financial issues or you know, troubles at home or fighting with the wife or whatever, and I can throw myself into my work and I'm being productive and I'm giving myself validity because I'm working so hard. Like, what is your advice to those people that are basically doing that very same thing but aren't necessarily, you know, experiencing what we've already talked about as a singular traumatic event?
Well, you can have both, is what I would say. You know, you can, if that's one of your coping mechanisms, is throwing yourself into your work because production helps you, right? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's starting to notice when this is not working or when it's just adding more stress to me. Now I'm getting burnt out on the thing that I love, right? That's one thing that really some folks really struggle with, is they start to do this thing that they love and that typically helps them cope with things. And now all of a sudden, this ain't working anymore, right? Now I don't feel like I want to do this anymore. So we find ourselves burnt out on the things that we love, hobbies and activities. Like for me, it was fishing. I used to fish all the time, fly fish all the time. I started to notice I'm not doing this, right? So I go back into it. Let me go fishing. Maybe that'll help everything, right? And then it wasn't anymore. I had become burnt out. I didn't want to be fishing. And that's one of 3 things probably on this planet that I would want to do more than anything else. So I would say to those people, you can have both, right? If you want to throw yourself into your work and that's your coping mechanism, it's fine. You can do that. And you can also seek whatever other intervention, whether it be professional, whether it be just a peer, just a buddy that you call and talk to. You know, you can process and work through things and still engage in those coping mechanisms. As a matter of fact, if I'm your provider, that's what I'm going to tell you to do.
Well, I think,
Unless it
that's
starts to hurt you.
That's my question, or my concern is, like what Mary just said, I've cried and kept working and just kept going. Like that's where my wheel of woe starts. Like when I hit that wall of depression and it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm burnt out. And, you know, if I get one more customer complaint or one more person telling me that my triggers suck or whatever, I want to rip somebody's head off. And then I just keep pushing on that wheel because I know if I keep doing it, at some point I'm going to push myself to the other end. And that's I don't know how to verbally spiel all this onto the air, but that's, I think what I'm talking about is what Mary's talking about, what so many of us are talking about. It's like I can't pinpoint it on one specific trauma, but I can say, hey, financially, we're not making the sales. What do I have to do differently? I haven't tried hard enough to get the Phoenix brand out there. I haven't done enough marketing to get details coming into the shop. There's a lot of guys and gals out there that are just kind of like, I feel like I'm doing everything that I possibly can, but it's not enough. So I'm just going to double my efforts. And they're
Let me
not
ask you
really
this.
addressing all of that shit that's killing them inside. Someday it's like one of those days, it's like, hey, you know what? If I have a heart attack while I'm working, that's a win. My son can't say that I took the easy way out. My wife can't say that I took the easy way out. Just had a heart attack. It happens.
Again, give it a name, acknowledge it, recognize it, do something about it, right? That's what it all boils down to, man, is facing it, whatever it is. And for those people who are doing that, you know, I'm one of those people, you know, but it comes down to, you have to, I don't want to phrase this. You have to put your worth in the mirror and you have to look at it and you have to question it. What is my worth, right? And you mentioned the whole, well, I don't do this, I don't have time to do that, I can't do this, I can't do that, blah, 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 blah. It's all the I don't, the I can't do, the all this. What happens if we change that? And we say, what did I do? What did I do today? What are all the things I did accomplish today, right? There's only 24 hours in a day. I'm only human, right? And if I'm functioning at my absolute best and I accomplish these things, that's awesome. But what if I'm just having a bad day? A lot of people have bad days, right? Sometimes purpose is just getting out of bed in the mornings, right? But it also comes down to a mindset change, right? Of I'm going to change how I talk to myself. I'm going to change how I move through this world because I'm going to look at myself tomorrow more valuable than I looked at it today. And whatever that is to you and whatever it is that you need to do to exercise that value. But again, for those of you that are doing that are burying yourself in your work and you're just, I cried and I kept going. It's okay. Cry. Get those stress hormones out of your body. That's what's happening when we're crying. Let it out. But also give yourself an opportunity to fight against those things that are making you feel that way. Whatever that is to you. Again, as long as it's a healthy, productive way that's not hurting anybody else, rock and roll. Do what you got to do. But when you learn that this is not getting me there, be willing to look at yourself and say, not only do I want to take the next step, but damn it, I'm worth it. The rest of my life is worth it. The people that I have around me is worth it. And that way, whenever you're, you know, sitting in that nursing home or you're on your deathbed, whatever, you're not looking back going, damn, you know, I wish I'd have dealt with that. I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have done that. You can sit there and go, I let go of what I needed to. I controlled what I could control. I adapted when I needed to adapt. And I loved myself through every damn minute of it. What more do you want? What more can you ask for than to be happy with who you are on that last day? Whatever that is to you. I hope that answered your question. I feel like we went real philosophical.
And we're allowed to. Okay. 100%. That was fantastic. And I guess basically, again, dovetailing into the next question, if someone listening tonight knows that they're hurting but doesn't know where to turn, what is the best advice that you can give them right
now? Who do you trust that can answer that question? You know, do you have anybody around you that would have any kind of lived experience or anything that you could say, hey, what do I need to do next? Right? Or just reach out to a professional, right? Reach out to somebody that you know of or that you've seen on TV or Facebook or whatever and just say, I want a consultation. I want to have a conversation, right? Or reach out to me, shoot me a message. I will point you in the right direction. If I don't have what you need right now, we'll find it together. It may take us a while, right? The first 2 or 3 things that I put in front of you, they might not work, but the 7th and 8th thing might just change your damn life. So just be willing to go out and ask. You know, we have demonized vulnerability, and we've made it cool to just be strong. We've made it cool to not cry, and made it cool to not talk about these things. We need to make it cool again to love ourselves enough to be able to move through that stuff and to be able to support each other through it. Right.
I don't know if it was ever cool. I mean, not to but I'm saying, like, you know, we're talking about, like, if we go back to World War II, the greatest generation of our time, the shit that they saw, they didn't talk about it. My grandfather, he didn't talk about anything trauma related. He would tell great war stories about, you know, him and his buddies doing X, Y, and Z and drinking and driving a Jeep off of a cliff and all kinds of craziness. They didn't talk about it. My father, for sure, he didn't talk about it. I mean, he's Vietnam era, you know. I mean, it's unfortunate that he was a Marine and therefore obviously not allowed to talk about emotions or feelings or any of that other stuff. You know, and then me being, you know, Generation X, like, we made fun of each other for expressing any kind of feeling. So I honestly believe that this is the first time that we have been able to actually talk about this kind of stuff and kind of remove the stigma and remove the you know, I mean, I think we've come a long way in just like the last 10 years as far
we
as
have,
mental
for
health
sure.
awareness and you know, even being able to get mental health on insurance and stuff like that, because before it was like, oh, we don't cover therapy, you pussy.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and it comes down to this. It comes down to, you know, that 7-year-old who they come home from school and somebody said something bad to them or whatever the case may be. They just had a bad day. And they come home and they want to tell one of the 2 people on this planet that they trust the most, really the only 2 that they have complete trust for, most likely. And they tell them about this bad day. What are they expecting when they say that? They're expecting support. They're expecting encouragement. Well, what if they're met with a, no, stick your chin out, you know, don't cry. We don't do that around here. No, you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about. What does that communicate to that kid?
Yes.
What does it communicate to that kid? So now this kid, you think that stops? You think that's something that just goes away when that's said? No, that is the adult figure that lives in your house that's molding you into the adult you're going to become, telling you this is how we do things. So then you become an adult and you go, well, this is what I've always known. This is what makes sense. This is what I know to be true, right? And let's just switch over into law enforcement and first responders for a second, and military. Here's the difference in what I'm talking about. You take an officer who's involved in an officer-involved shooting. Let's say you have 2 officers involved in the same shooting, right? Traumatic, absolutely. Let's say Officer A goes to command and says, man, that really screwed me up. I'm not having a good time, and I really don't want to go to work today. I really need to figure this out because I don't feel like I'm the type of product that these people on the street deserve for me to be, because that's what I'm supposed to be, right? When I go out here on the street, I'm supposed to have my shit together, right? And let's say command looks at that person and says, nope, swallow it, deal with it, pack it in, move on to the next one, right? Ain't gonna be no support here for you. I ain't calling the peer team. We're not sending you to no therapist. We're not doing none of that. Officer B witnessed the same thing, same exact situation, goes to command. Well, command calls in VA Leap. We'll use us as an example. We come in and provide peer support services. That person gets a follow-up appointment with an EMDR provider, and they hash out those details immediately within days or weeks after this bad thing happened to them. What's the difference? You have one cop that's going to be ready to come back to work because they've had support, they've had healing, they've had encouragement, they've had somebody look at them in the eyes and give a shit about them, right? You got the other one who was told, deal with it on your own. We've got nothing for you. You show up like a good little machine, right? Be our little machine, and what you do when you go home, that's on you. Which cop would you rather have on the street with a badge and a gun?
Cop B. Sure.
Cop B, 100% all day long. Now let's apply that to all of humanity. Let's apply that to everybody else. You don't have to be a cop. You don't have to be a soldier. You don't have to be somebody that's just at risk of experiencing worse things than you. You can be the greeter at Walmart. It doesn't matter. We're all the same people, all the same situations, right? When people feel supported, they freaking grow, right? When people don't feel supported, they curl up in their little shell and they go back to what is familiar to them. And that is hide, run, avoid everything that is going to cause them to have a shorter life than what they could have if they say, I ain't listening to that old man. They didn't know what they were talking about back then. If you don't support me, that's fine. I'll find somebody who does, right? That's the difference in the type of person that we create and put out here in the world. Those who feel supported, they're walking around happy, right? Because they have support. They know they have people in their corner that's going to lift them up, right? Rather than people that's going to spit in their face. So that's the difference.
Amen. I mean, that's what this podcast, that's what this family has always been about, is just lifting each other up. Thank Adam. I don't even know what to tell you. So, how can we support each other better? Whether we're first responders, veterans, or just people trying to survive, how can we support each other better?
Get out of your own way. Once we learn individually to get out of our own way, we learn how to stop getting in everybody else's damn way. I mean, look at the country right now, dude.
Yeah.
We are fighting like we have never fought before. But here's why this is so stupid.
Except for the Civil War. I mean, that was pretty divisive.
We fought pretty damn bad then too, yeah. But the thing of it is, man, you take people on the right, they think that Democrats are absolutely out of their mind, just mentally unstable. But if you ask a Democrat the same thing about the people on the right, what do they say? Those people are mentally unstable, right? Why is it that none of us can just look at each other and say, what's your story? I know where you stand, but I don't have a damn clue how you got there. But I'm going to judge you on what I see right now, right? So just get out of your way, man. Just realize that your lens is one of 8.5 billion on this planet. You don't have it all figured out. None of us do. We're all here together, you know. We all have the ability to improve each other's life every single day. It's just whether or not we exercise that. You know, it's back to the walking through Walmart. You know, You got a choice when you see that person.
Be kind. That's it. That's all it takes.
That is the most rebellious thing that you can do, is just be kind, because everything.
I can't tell you how many times I've encountered somebody and I just said, "Hey, are you doing all right? I appreciate it. Thanks, man. I don't know if I impacted it or not. Obviously, they're not going to open up to a complete stranger, but there's still that connection that you make."
Well, you think about this. Think about somebody who has literally given up on everything. The Kevin Hines story. Have you ever heard the Kevin Hines story?
Maybe.
Once you get off here, whenever you get bored, go to YouTube and look up the Kevin Hines story. He's a gentleman who talks about his suicide attempt. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. One of the very few people that have survived that. And his story is so powerful.
I did just come across that like 2 weeks ago. Yep, the golden, and it's like a sea lion or something kept bobbing his head up to keep him afloat.
Yeah, or a dolphin or something.
A dolphin or something like that. Yeah, it's
one of the something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just nobody talked to him. Nobody asked me how I was doing. Maybe if one person would have looked at me and just said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Maybe I wouldn't have done it. How many people are walking around like that right now? That are just on the edge, they've given up. They've given up on humanity.
Thousands in this political climate, I'm sure there's tens of thousands.
Oh my gosh, they've given up on humanity. They've given up on themselves. They've given up on everything. And then one person has the audacity to open the door for them when they walk in the store. One person has the audacity to wave when they cut them off in traffic by mistake when they could have flipped them off. Right? Just small, tiny little acts of kindness that don't, I mean, what are you losing? Not losing anything. You're gaining when you're being kind to other people, not only for you, but for the other person. Now imagine that person's at the end of their freaking rope. They think that they have that they're this scum of the earth. They don't matter. They're worthless. Nobody gives a shit about them. And one person shows them that that's not true. That somebody, even if they're 10,000 miles away from you, they do give a shit about you. How does that change that person's life? How does that change what they do now with every moment that they're given? What happens to the next two people that they walk up to and do the same thing. And then those 2 people do it for 6. Those 6 people do
Dare
it
I
for
say
100.
pay it forward? Dare
Pay
I
it
say pay
forward.
it forward, Eileen?
You know, that's just it's that simple, man. It really is. And there's a part of the book, there's a quote in the book that says, you know, what if we all stop what we were doing right now? Yep. What if we all stopped and just looked at the person nearest us and said, how you doing? You okay? Can I do anything for you? What would the ripple effect of that be? How would the world change in 5 minutes if every human being gave a shit for 5 seconds? All the kids that were abused as kids, everybody that's gone through horrible traumas, everybody that's lost somebody and feels like there's nothing left in this world for them, how will that change humanity if we all just had that mindset?
Amen. Amen, sir. So we are approaching the end of the second hour. I definitely want to plug you as much as humanly possible. So I can't thank you enough for your insight and your wisdom and your sharing. Adam, you're
Yeah, this
beautiful.
conversation was amazing.
Well, again, I appreciate you guys having me.
You are an incredible human, and I'm honored that you're here. So that being said, if people wanted to reach out to you, where and what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Oh man, I'm everywhere right now. Facebook, Instagram. I think on Facebook I'm Adam Blevins, author. I think Instagram H Blevins.
I got you at
1991.
adams.blevins.5283.
I think it's just the whatever the URL or whatever it is. That's fine. It'll take you to the same place.
All right.
On TikTok, Shift Show author. Welcome to the Shift Show, both on Facebook and Instagram, and welcome to the Shift Shows on YouTube as well. You can find me anywhere. I'm just starting to put up different episodes and series to kind of attack as many areas of life as I can for people, that if they're just kind of looking for a short little, well, damn, I didn't know I needed that today. That's where you can find it. And also, if you're somebody that's looking for resources and you're just not sure what to do, where to go, reach out to me. We'll find you something.
Yeah, I recently subscribed to your YouTube channel. I watched, I think you got 6 or 7 little videos up there. Fantastic stuff. Hopefully, Curmudgeon's 58 will be on your channel as well.
Absolutely.
This is absolute gold. I can't thank you enough. Again, also there's a link below in the comment section, not in the chat section, but in the comment section, there's a link below to Welcome to the Shift Show. You can get his book on Amazon. Where else can they find your book? You mentioned a bunch of places on Kevin's show.
Yeah, it's through Ingram Spark as well. So if you're a Books A Million person, Barnes & Noble, wherever it is that you get your books, you can go online and order it. If you have a local bookshop that you go to, they probably don't have it on their shelves right now, but if you go into any bookstore, they can order it for you. Yeah.
Awesome. And it came out May 13th, and you said you're within hopefully 2 weeks of the audiobook.
Well, hopefully 2 months from the audiobook. Yeah,
2 months,
2 weeks.
that's what I meant. Sorry, 2 months. Sorry.
Yeah, the audiobook, I got to work on my accent and my inflection and all that. So,
yeah, that's fair. I think you sound great.
You sound great.
You sound a hell of a lot better than Rick Smith. When Rick Smith starts talking, at the end of his sentence, he pauses and then he brings it up, like he emphasizes the last consonant in the word. So I was walking. That's my favorite when he's
Rick,
talking.
I've got no part of this. I didn't do it.
He totally
do it,
Rick. He set me up backstage. He said you got to make fun of his speech patterns.
Rick is the best.
He is the best.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I got to be careful. I ain't gonna say nothing about Rick because his wife is still my boss lady in my mind. So I'm not gonna do that.
Look at that. They're already ordering the book, dude. They're already ordering the book. Adam, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing as a human to humankind. You and I are definitely going to be in contact after all of this is over because, like we talked about before, finding the right therapist for me. You said that you were able to help with that, so you're definitely a resource. Making sure that I get the right person to unleash the demons, if you will.
Just you find the right person to give the demons a place to come out and play safely for a little bit until they start to learn they don't have to be demons anymore.
Yeah. So, Eileen, anything you want to add?
No, this was amazing. Definitely. Like I said, I dealt with a situation, Aaron, you're familiar with it, but about 15 years ago, and it took me about 6 or 7 therapists. I finally found one that really like unlocked a lot of things for me outside of like the one big trauma event, but a lot of the other little ones that happened way before that one happened. And yeah, this was a great conversation, and I appreciate you for coming on, because you definitely hit a lot of great points that hopefully
Okay.
will help. It looks like it helped a lot of people in the chat.
For sure.
Good. I hope so.
Adam,
we're all stronger than we think we are. The brain
Absolutely.
likes to trick us.
I think, and we're also stronger when we're together. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, absolutely. So, everybody, Phoenix family, this is a call to arms. Phoenix family, you need to go over to YouTube after the show. Make sure you subscribe to the Shift Show, and find Adam everywhere he is on social medias, and support him. Even you said you were on TikTok as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a new endeavor.
Yeah, me too. I had a marketing
Something
girl.
we got to do.
Yeah, for sure. So, Phoenix family, make sure that you guys like and subscribe to all of his stuff, and when you get a chance, share this episode with as many people as you can. Again, it has nothing to do with detailing, so don't be afraid to send it to friends and family. None of us know what we don't know, and none of us know what demons the person in the foxhole beside you is dealing with. So, Adam, thank you so much. We're going to usually what we do, we wind down the show with a whole bunch of mental health stuff. You're welcome to stick around. If you got to punch out, I know we got about 8 more minutes before. I know that it's a hard sell, but we can wind the show down now if you're up for it.
I can hang out for a few more minutes.
All right, brother. Okay, so Eileen, this is where you can find
Yes,
Eileen.
sir.
Make
Yep.
sure, Eileen, where can they find you if they're looking for you?
You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, So Clean Detailing. You can send me an email. I'll get back to it probably like in 5 to 6 days, because it takes me a little bit to get through the emails. Fastest way is probably Instagram, and then also check out my website, getsoclean.com.
And on YouTube?
Yes, YouTube as well. I got a couple videos there.
Excellent. All right. So, everybody, we do the Rise from the Ashes Pay It Forward campaign. Send donations to Phoenix E.O.D. at 404 Bloomfield Drive, Suite 1, West Berlin, New Jersey, 08091. We had such an amazing time down in South Carolina, and we got so many donations. Rick Smith, Keeve donated his entire garage to the cause. I think that we're going to probably start a GoFundMe page to help pay for shipping when it comes time to give all this stuff away, because we have so many items and they are very, very heavy. Air compressors, power washers, a lot of chemicals, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to ship it all everywhere. So we're going to start a GoFundMe page. Next week, we're going to have the birthday bash. It's going to be a long one. I think I'm going to open it up to the entire Phoenix family. I'm going to put the link in the comment section, and then everybody and anybody who wants to be on the show can come on the show, talk about whatever they want, make fun of whoever they want. It's the way that we do things. We are family, and it isn't family unless you're making fun of somebody. So next week is going to be the birthday bash, and then Eileen and I are taking, I think, the rest of July off, because it's been quite a ride. So the big birthday bash, July 5th, it's going to, what's his nuts? Jamie wants to beat all the records. So we're going for at least 7 hours. Who knows what's going to happen? West Coast
I'll be there
distribution.
for one of those.
It's all right. Yeah, you're coming at the end to make it, to finish strong, to carry me off the field. After
Yeah, exactly. To pull you off the screen.
Exactly. West Coast distribution, imdetailedaf.com, Midwest distribution, fabdetailsupplies.com, and Southeast distribution, shininglightdetailing.com/store. Worldwide distribution, Carzilla in Canada, carzilla.ca, into detailing.co, UK in the United Kingdom, and in Australia, our good friend Andrew, osprodetailing.com.au. And then, of course, everywhere you are, you can find us with the House of Rags. Go to thehouseofrags.com and get all of your Phoenix stuff. And I believe Fenrir should be part of their 4th of July sale. So check in often. If you would like to be a guest on Curmudgeon's Corner, drop us an email at info@phoenixeod.com. And then, of course, suicide prevention and crisis counseling resources. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, seek help from a professional and call 988. The United States' first nationwide 3-digit mental health crisis hotline, 988, will connect you with callers, connect callers with trained mental health counselors. You can also text HOME to 741-741 in the US and Canada to reach the crisis text hotline. And then, of course, you can always go to the apa.org/topics/crisis-hotlines that will connect you with resources for anything that you may be dealing with, be it mental, physical, emotional, gambling, substance abuse, drinking, whatever it is that you may be facing, whatever demon is in your closet, you can find help. You are not alone out there. And then, of course, last but not least, you can follow us at Instagram at Curmudgeon's Corner Pod to keep abreast of everything that is happening with Curmudgeon's Corner. Oh, Adam, before we go, I got one last thing that I wanted to ask you about or talk to you about real quick. I got 4 minutes. You gave Kevin a challenge coin.
Yes.
And my feelings are hurt.
I would give you a challenge coin if I was in your studio right now, but
I know you would.
You know,
I know you would. So
I
this
can
is
get you one.
This is my brother. His name is Trainwreck. He's a Marine, lost both of his legs in Africa back in 2012 when his helicopter, the V-22 Osprey, crashed. He is a gold medalist archer now, and he just got selected to go to the World Championship in South Korea next year. So he is a super caliber. Welcome to the Shift Show. I want to put him in connection with you. I think that there's so much that you both can I would love to be a fly on the wall and listen to your conversations. But the point of the story is this is his challenge coin, and I would love to send you one. I have a bunch, and he has a bazillion. I'd love to send you one in exchange for one of your challenge coins, if you don't mind. I would love that. I would love to see this coin on that wall behind you, over your shoulder. If anybody deserved a place on your wall, it would be my brother. You have to know him to love him. He is a force of nature, 90% emotion, 10% thought, and he is a force to be reckoned with. Absolutely, we'll get you one, and I'll actually send you two, one for you, one for him. And yeah, we can find room on there. I appreciate that. All right, buddy. Adam, thank you so much for coming on. I can't tell you how much it means to me and how much it means to our community. Eileen?
Thank you both. I appreciate the time. Adam, of course, thank you so much for being on the show. You want to hang out 2 seconds backstage when we end this? I'd appreciate it. If you can't, you can't. I get it. I'll just throw the babies asleep, so we're good. Yeah. All right, brother. Everybody, thanks for coming out on a Saturday night. There's a million things you could have been doing otherwise, and you decided to come out to the corner and hang out with us. Love you guys so much. We'll see you next week for the birthday bash. Pack a lunch. It's going to be an all-day affair. So until then, we'll catch you next time on the corner.